Thank you for coming. It's my great pleasure to introduce Rajiv Gandhi. He is a professor at Rutgers University Camden and also teaches at University of Pennsylvania. He works in the area of theoretical computer science and has won many awards, including many teaching awards and the Chancellor's Award for Civil Engagement at Rutgers-Camden, among others. And this is part of the reason why he's winning all these awards. So please.
Thank you, Anna. Folks, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been wanting to come here for a while. It's a fantastic department. I've heard wonderful things about it. I've been following, lots of things about this department over the years. So it's indeed an honor to be here. So this talk is about our work that we have done at Rutgers-Camden over the past 10 years or so. Camden, New Jersey, if many of you may not know, it's among the most underprivileged cities in the country. Some of us, our students have done very well despite the many odds. And in this talk, I'm going to highlight the stories of some of the students. So let me start by giving some background about Rutgers-Camden. It's mainly a 4-year college. We have a few master's programs. And most students hold jobs, while studying. And many of them have full-time jobs, and thus studying becomes somewhat of a part-time activity. And a majority of our students transfer from community colleges. So they finish 2 years at a community college, and then they transfer to Rutgers-Camden to finish the rest of the 2 years. That means there's a very small window of opportunity during which you can have an impact on these students. And when they come to Rutgers-Camden, within a year, if they find a job, then they are essentially checked out, and they are looking forward to starting the job. And hardly any student at Rutgers-Camden in the first 14 years of the department went to graduate school. Yeah, so to just give you an idea of the background that some of our students have, I'm going to show you a very candid personal statement of one of our students. This is a statement he had written when he was applying for summer internships. He said, "In high school, I did not care for education and felt it didn't care for me. Senior year in high school, I did not know what was going to happen. I had only applied to one college, Rutgers-Camden, the school closest to my home, and had plans on joining the armed forces like 3 of my siblings, if I was not accepted. I only applied because in our country, college is what everyone does after high school, since almost any job now requires a college education. I got admitted to Rutgers-Camden, but I had no idea what I was doing there and barely coasted through courses. I felt like I had no future." And so, this is the statement of Robert McDavid, and, this kind of reflects the state of many of our students at Rutgers-Camden. I joined Rutgers-Camden in 2003, and what I found was that the students lacked confidence in their ability to, have bigger aspirations. And likewise, I found that the faculty lacked confidence in the students' abilities. And that's why many of our courses were very diluted, right? So when I would talk to the faculty as to why is this course not as challenging as it should be, or not as challenging as, let's say, some other school, let's say MIT or something. And the answer would come saying, "Oh, our students may not be able to handle them." But my experience was when I joined in 2003, I found some very bright students in my class, right? And I found that, if I'm in challenge, they could actually rise to the occasion. But I was unsuccessful at convincing my colleagues of the same, right? I would tell them, "Look, we have some really good students, and I think if we do something, good things may happen." And, they were not wrong. They've been there for many years. I was the junior most faculty then, and they said, "Look, we have tried, and things did not happen." So my initial advice to students was that, look, go somewhere else. I felt that, look, my loyalty is to my students, so I would advise them, you go, somewhere else, and some students transferred to Michigan, Penn, and Rutgers. This is for undergraduates. So they were there, and then on my convincing them, they applied to other schools, and they went there. Now, in hindsight, this is a silly thing to do, considering the socioeconomic background that our students come from, right? It just happened. This was just a coincidence that some of the students could take loans and go, but this would not happen for a majority of our students. But this went on for 3 years or so, until I met Brad Greening in 2006, 2007. Brad was a student in the Math Foundations course that I was teaching. He was one of the best students in the class, and I told him the same thing. "Brad, I think you should go to some other place. You'll do much better." And Brad said, "Look, going to another place is not an option for me. First of all, I'm very happy here. I'm getting good grades. I have a job at Comcast as a customer sales representative. I'm making $35,000 a year. I don't see why I should go somewhere else." So to inspire him to do something, right, or what I felt was good for his own career, I invited him to do some research with me. I had applied for a Dean's Award for him to do research. He got an award of $450, which kind of motivated him to do some research. right? So initially in the summer we would start meetings, but we would have some meetings, but very soon he would not come to the meetings, and when I would email him, he would not even reply to my emails. So the entire summer went by, it was a total failure. In fall, in the first week of fall, I see Brad in the hallway, he sees me, he goes in the other direction, I chase him down. I say, hey, we need to have a talk in my office. Brad comes to my office, I tell him, look, I have to write a report to the dean on what happened with this award. I mean, of course, I could have written anything, but I wanted him to realize that, look, he's responsible for this. And note, he was a customer sales representative. He was very polite. He said, Rajiv, how do you want me to fix it? So I had that time I knew what background he had, and I had this book lying on my shelf, The Art of Combinatorial Proofs, and I gave it to him and I said, read this book and present to me every week. So he would take this, he took this book, and every week during the entire fall semester, he would come and he would teach me different proofs from the book, and they were really, really elegant material in the book, which I was meaning to at least gloss over. And it was a wonderful experience for him and for me. And he would bring these index cards with just ideas of the proof, and he would teach me. At the end of the fall semester, I realized he had enough material to prepare a talk. I told him, why don't you prepare a talk? And he said, do what? I said, you'll give a talk in the department colloquium. So he prepared a talk and he gave a talk in the department colloquium in 2008. And this is the email that I get from one of my colleagues. So I had him in my class a few years ago, and based on that, I would have never guessed he'd be capable of the seminar talk he gave a few weeks back. You've obviously been very good for him. He also gave a talk at the University of Maryland seminar series, and he gave a wonderful talk, and several faculty told me, look, we'll be very happy if he applies to grad school. And in Jan 2008, I told Brad that, look, there were a lot of opportunities for summer of 2008, and I would like to recommend him for those positions, but for that, I would like him to quit his job. What I noticed was that Brad's job was interfering with his academics, and his grades had also started to suffer, and I think he could do a lot more. Plus, I wanted him to quit his job because I didn't want what happened to me the previous summer to happen to somebody else. And Brad told me, look, Rajiv, quitting the job is not an option. It's going to be very difficult, but I'll think about it. So I meet with him after a few days. He comes to my office. I could just tell from the moment he entered my office, he came with this small face. He was, I talked to him. I said, what happened? He said, it's not going to happen. He said, look, Rajiv, when I'm in your office, when you talk to me, I'm completely convinced by what you have to tell. I mean, what you have to say. But as soon as I go, I talk to my friends, my family, they think I'm crazy to even think about quitting my job when I have such a nice job. And then, why should I even consider going to grad school and so on? So I remember taking a piece of paper. I said, tell me how much money do you need per month? It was coming to about $500. And I just told him, look, I'll make it happen. We'll somehow get you $500. And he said, look, I don't think that's going to work, but I'll think about it more. So he went, he said he'll think about it. I didn't have much hopes at that time. I thought, I was really feeling frustrated that I could not convince somebody to do something what I thought was good for him. Anyway, at that time, and after a few days, he sends me an email, which I would say turns out to be among the most significant events in things that have happened at Rutgers-Camden. And this is the email he sent me. He sent me on a Wednesday. It's past midnight. And you see the subject is decision. It was that important, a decision for him. Dear Rajiv, I would like to try to go for it. You can still sense the tentativeness in the tone of his email, right? As per the discussion, I figure even if things do not work out, you see the negative mindset. Still, he's thinking of what if things don't work out, right? With the work we will have done, plus the plan to do the data structures work, I will be able to get another very possibly better job should the worst case happen. Again, he's thinking of what if things don't work out, right? By my figures, a lower bound of $550 per month will allow me to pay my parents their money. He's talking about paying rent to his parents. I've been at Camden now, this 2008, for 5 years, and I thought I knew my students, but I still could not relate to this. This is, the kind of background that our students come from. He had to contribute towards the rent of the house where he's staying with his parents, plus pay for my car insurance, gas and phone, and so on. If tutoring cannot fill this, I may need to supplement it from somewhere else and so on. Right? So this was a great decision. It was very good for us. And I asked Brad later on, I said, what transpired? I thought you were not going to quit your job. He said, Rajiv, I was so confused. And he said, I actually sat down to write to you an email that I will not quit my job. And I said, I don't know what happened at the last minute. I just typed this up. I said, I'll quit my job. And I hit enter because I really was tired of making, trying to decide. Anyway, he goes in, he gets a research experience for undergrad's position with Professor Nina Pfefferman at Rutgers, New Brunswick, the main campus, with whom he eventually does his PhD. Right, so that was Brad, and 2008, 2009 was a turning point. This is when Brad got into the graduate program, and I got NSF funding for the first time. So it was becoming very difficult. I would tell my students to quit their jobs, but they needed the money. I mean to survive. And how would I do that? How can I get them maybe one position on campus and so on, but it was becoming very difficult to convince them, and that is when this NSF funding really helped me, because I could tell them, look, if somebody is paying you $14 an hour, I'll match it $14 an hour through the support that I received from NSF. Another thing, I was still very frustrated, that is why the courses at Camden were not as challenging as some of the other courses. But looking at the positive side, if the other courses were not challenging, that means the students had a lot of time at their hands. That means I can make my course as challenging as I want. So I really made the Math Foundations course very, very hard. I would take, and another thing was, I believed that my students were just as good as students from any school in the country. I mean, maybe, it was wishful thinking, maybe I was fooling myself. How do I prove that? So I would take assignments from, say, Tom Layton's course at MIT or the course at Berkeley. Whatever they give for like 1 week, I would give them half a week, right? And these are students from Camden. Another thing is, this was the first time the Math Foundations course was offered. I told the chair that I want to teach for 3 semesters in a row. So if somebody is planning to drop my course and take it with other faculty, they'll have to wait for 3 semesters. So it was basically that they were kind of stuck into it, and it was a prerequisite for almost all other courses, so they had to pass it. The side effect of this was students actually surprised themselves, right? So they did well, they knew they had to pass, and students did very well. I've had students in my office at the end of the semester in tears saying that I cannot believe I actually did well in this course. Then students like Tom and James. So Tom Dihat comes into my office in that fall semester of 2009 and just says, hey, Rajiv, I've come to thank you for the courses you have taught me. I'm going to graduate next semester, and I just wanted to thank you. So I said, what are you going to do after graduation? He said, I'm going to go and get a job. And I just told him, I said, who'll give you a job? I won't. Just imagine a faculty at a university telling their student of their department, who's a senior, saying that, look, you are not good enough to get a job. But luckily for me, he was very polite. I would probably be very upset if a faculty tells me that. But he tells me, he said, what do you think I should do? I said, look, I'm teaching 2 freshman level classes, Math Foundations and Data Structures. Why don't you take those classes? He said, Rajiv, I've taken them. I've got good grades. I said, no, you have not taken them with me. I want you to take them with me. And I said, your success is my guarantee. I have no idea how I can make such statements, but I did. And I said, you do well. I'll make sure everything will happen. Quite surprisingly, he listened to me. He said, fine, I won't graduate, I will take your courses. He took the Math Foundations, took the Data Structures, took all the things that I told him for 1 year. Keep in mind, he's retaking these classes, being a senior. He took these classes and he did well. James Davis, how did I meet him? There was a student, Kelly, in my Math Foundations class. When I would ask questions in the class, Kelly would sometimes give right answers, sometimes not so right answers, which is fine. But her homeworks used to be perfect. So I called Kelly, I said, hey, what's going on with your homeworks? And she was very frank. She said, oh, I have a friend, James Davis, who helps me with my math homeworks. I said, oh, if he's helping me with the math homeworks, why doesn't he take this class and get credit for it? He's a senior in math and it would be too easy. I said, look, making things challenging is always easy. Ask him to come. And I'd forgotten about the incident, but I was lucky that in the next class, James Davis walks in my class. And I asked James at the end of the class, I said, what are your plans? He said, oh, I already have a job. I said, oh, where do you have a job? He said, I'm going to work at ShopRite, a supermarket chain in New Jersey, after I graduate in the prepared foods department. He said, I've been working there since high school, and that's what I want to do. I said, okay. I said, can ShopRite wait for some time? Can you and I do some work together? He said, sure, I can get into ShopRite anytime. So that's how James quit his job at ShopRite temporarily, and he and I started working together. Now, I also introduced a course. So again, there was one thing that I, at that time, was getting convinced that my students are very good. How do I convince, let's say, the grad admissions chair at UW or MIT that these students are very good? All said and done, academics, we will look at where the students have graduated from, right? It's not very easy to overlook that. A 4.0 from Camden may not mean as much as a 4.0 from somewhere else. So my students had to highlight something that other students in the country would not have. And what I found is that, most undergrads are not involved in research. So if my students could do research, that would help them stand out. So I introduced a course in which the students were required to read and present research papers. Keep in mind, I had only 2 years. The students have come from community colleges with very little background. So I would keep a course starting at 5 o'clock, and generally it would be 5 to 6:30, but I would say, the course will have no end time. When you are tired and I'm tired, we'll stop. And I asked the students, I said, would you like exams? They said, no, we don't like exams. I said, fine, no exams. The requirement is that if I teach, we are in the 10th class of the semester, if I have taught you something in the first class, if I ask you to come on the board and present that to me, you should not have to look it up and you should be able to come up. We'll all wait in the class for you to finish it. So basically I had to teach them how to study, right? How to keep the key ideas in the mind, and the rest they can fill it up. And it was amazing because even some of the hard results, like, say in theory, the case center problem and all, my students came up with better proofs than what I had, because they had to come on the board and they realized that the silence in the class was, getting to them. It's not easy to stand on the board and not knowing what to write the next sentence, and the entire class is watching you. So in the process, they actually learned how to study, how to read research papers. And during the spring of 2010, I believe the entire colloquium was run by undergraduate students. All talks in the colloquium were given by undergraduate students at Rutgers-Camden. All those talks are available on my webpage. You can take a look at them. This was really given very professional talks and very well. And this I don't think it happens anywhere in the country. So students were reading papers that were appearing in Soda, Stock, Fox, and so on, and they were doing a wonderful job. And this also surprised the faculty in our department that our students are very, very good. Brad gets admitted into the PhD program at Rutgers, which is a big deal now, right? I mean, this is the first time ever a student has gotten into the PhD program in 15, 16 years of the department's history. And several students now get admitted to REUs and internships and did well. Except one student. Tom DeHart, the student whom I told your success is my guarantee, is the only student who did not get into internship. He did everything I told him, and he did not get any summer internship. Right? And I was very devastated. And he comes to my office. He said, Rajiv, I've been rejected everywhere. And all credit to him. He was not upset at me, or maybe he was and he didn't show. I would have been very upset, right? I mean, this is a faculty who told me you do this and everything will happen. So I asked him, I said, had you got an offer at every place you would have applied to, where would you have gone? He said, I want to do human-computer interaction. I would have gone to Virginia Tech. So I said, okay. He left my office. I remember swiveling in my chair. I wrote a long email to Virginia Tech folks saying that, look, money is not a problem. Just take him. Give him a position in your lab. I didn't get a reply. And now 1 week was left before the internship. I said, let me email them again. I emailed them again saying, you haven't replied. Can you please reply? And bam, came the email within 5 minutes saying that, look, we really have no money. Only if you can support, we'll give him a position. I said, that's not a problem. I had NSF funding at that time. So I said, that's not a problem. Tom goes. He knew that he had got in through the back door. He knew that he was going to be part of a group of very well-accomplished students from very well-known schools. So Tom worked very hard during the summer. And then at the end of summer, we get these emails for my students. Josh Wetzel had gone to University of Maryland to work in bioinformatics. So he says, we got this email from his mentor. Josh was fabulous. We got a poster and oral presentation into the Wabi workshop, that's workshop in algorithm for bioinformatics, based on his work, and are now working on a journal paper. I've tried to get him to apply to Maryland for grad school, but he's got some family issues that will probably keep him out of grad school. I'll try to keep in touch with him and hopefully lure him here, right? So this is now the students, now the people at top schools are trying to lure our students. Tom DeHart, the student who got rejected everywhere, gets this email, hi Tom, I've enjoyed working with you on this project. Kathy mentioned you are submitting applications for graduate school. I hope you will consider applying to UW, that's University of Wisconsin-Madison. We are a well-funded program, highly ranked, and have many opportunities for research. Please let me know if you have any questions about our program and if you're interested in visiting. He had not even gone to University of Wisconsin, right? So, but now he's getting faculty because people had heard from other sources, look, this student is very good. He also gets this email from people at Virginia Tech. You may recall that we met during your summer research project at Virginia Tech. I heard you are applying for grad admissions here. I wanted to encourage you to apply and also share with you sometime more information about the work in our group. If you're applying, let me know. When you do so, I can look you up in our department's online grad admission system. The same student was turned down from every place just 2 months before he gets these emails. Now he's being, sought after by some of the top programs. James Davis continued to work with me. He had quit ShopRite. He was interested in theoretical computer science, so he and I did some work. And he gave some wonderful presentations at Maryland and at UPenn in their theory seminar series. I get this email from my colleagues there. Thanks, Rajiv. It was good to see both you and your maturing student, James. It's really nice that these guys can understand such key research papers. Right? So the papers that were published just a year or two before in top conferences, my students were presenting that. 4 more students now get accepted to top graduate programs: Cornell, Dartmouth, Princeton, Virginia Tech. Right? So now the culture in the department is changing. We have now 5 students in 2 years get into top graduate programs. So now I get emails. So, there was a time when I would chase students, right? I would tell them, look, come, let's give it a shot. Let's give research some shot, and so on. And after this success, I get emails such as this: Professor, I quit my job and I'm ready for any challenge you have to offer, right? I also get emails such as this: it's Nick from your 171 and 213 courses. I am graduating this semester and just wanted to take a minute to thank you for the courses you taught me. I may not have been the best student, but I definitely learned a lot from your courses, and I thank you for making us all work hard to learn. Keep up your teaching methods, they work well. So, this was again a validation that, making courses challenging was the way to go. And this is what helped the students, at least in the long run. So to give you the idea, let's look at the trajectory snapshots of some of the students. James Davis, his high school GPA was so low that Rutgers-Camden did not admit him. Right? And we don't have a very high threshold. He went to community college, boosted his GPA, and then got admitted to Rutgers-Camden. Planned to work at ShopRite, a grocery chain in New Jersey, his employer after high school. He quits his job in early 2009, starts graduate studies at Cornell in fall 2010, recipient of the prestigious NSF Graduate Research Fellowship, finishes his PhD in 2015, and is now an assistant professor at the University of Illinois. Brad Greening finishes his PhD from Rutgers, New Brunswick, the main campus, in 2014. Is the postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. Robert McDavid is the student whose personal statement you saw at the beginning. He's now a graduate student at Princeton University. And I have worked with many, many students. I can go on and on for hours about the background that the students have. And they all have very interesting backgrounds. To just give you a snapshot, take Brian Bruback, for example. Brian Bruback was a filmmaker. He quit his filmmaking and thought, okay, he should get into technology and maybe do some computer science at a relatively late age of 26, 27. He was already married. He and I crossed paths because he was taking my Math Foundations course at Rutgers-Camden. That was his first course in computer science, the first time he was ever learning how to write a proof. 1 year after that, he got his first single-authored result in theoretical computer science. I don't know if this happens at many places. Again, the point I'm trying to make is people are creative. They just need opportunities. Again, he was a filmmaker. He had never written a proof. He learned proofs. He was learning. 1 year after that, he got his first result, and that got published within 6 months or something after that. He's now a PhD student at the University of Maryland. Sean Lowen and Vijay Kothari were 2 students. Again, Sean Lowen was a high school student. He was working with me. And Vijay Kothari was a student at Rutgers-Camden. They both wanted to learn algorithmic game theory. Now, I didn't know that subject that well, so I said, look, and I don't have time to read it up and teach you. So I said, why don't we look at the surrounding schools if that courses are offered? We looked up Princeton, it was not offered there. We looked up Penn, it was not offered there. We increased the radius. It was offered at University of Maryland. Mohammad Taghi Ajiagai was offering the course. Maryland is 2.5 hours away, driving. Fortunately for us, it was a one day a week course of 2.5 hours. So both these students would drive in the morning at 6:30 to sit in that class, and for which they were getting no credit whatsoever. Learn come back the same day. They did this for most of the semester, except towards the end when it was just presentations. That is when they stopped. Right? So it's the kind of motivation that some of our students have because they realize that this is an opportunity for them to really do well, or this is one opportunity that they have. Chris Rees was a student I had many years ago, and he was kind of a problem student, and then he disappeared, and I thought maybe he graduated or he dropped out or something. Then a few years later, he again walks in my class. I said, oh, he's still around. And, I talked to him after a few classes. I realized he was a different Chris. In class, he would be attentive. He would answer questions. His assignments were good and so on. And I called him and I said, what's going on? And he said, look, I've already done this course. But, I did a lot of crazy things during my teenage years. I just am taking this course to prove myself that, look, I can do challenging things and I can do them well. And I told him the same thing, what I told Tom. I said, look, if you do well, your career is my responsibility. Right? At that time, now I knew how to do some of the things. Chris, again, retook all my classes. He also applied for summer internship, got rejected everywhere. In his case, I don't blame anyone, because that I have never seen transcripts with so many F grades. It was like pages after pages of F grades, right? But I knew he was very good. So again, I asked him what would have been our top choice had you got in anywhere. He said University of Southern California, because I wanted to work with Ramesh Govindan in sensor network. So I emailed them. Fortunately, they had money as well as they had time, and they said, fine, send him over, we'll work with him. Now, it turns out Chris, and I told this to Ramesh, Chris was an expert on cars. How did I find out this? Because once I told Chris, let's meet on a Saturday. And Chris said, sorry, I cannot meet you on a Saturday, and which made me very upset. I said, look, I am taking out time from my Saturday, my personal time, to meet with you, and you are telling me you cannot meet. So I said, you better have a good reason. He said, Rajiv, I have a good reason. He said, I fix cars on Saturdays, and I fix race cars. And I said, and he said, I get paid $150 an hour. I said, okay, how did you learn fixing race cars? He said, I learned it on my own. I mean, come on, how can a guy not be smart if he knows how to fix race cars and learned it on his own? Anyway, Chris goes to University of Southern California. He works, at that time, I think Ramesh Govindan was working on some project with cars and sensor networks. Chris goes, works on that project, and does very well. Even after he comes back, they are having conference call with Chris, an undergrad at Camden, because he was an expert on cars. And that project did very well. They published a paper. As you can see, this email from Ramesh. Chris must have told you about his census paper. Please encourage him to apply to grad school. I've been doing so. Right? Again, this is a student whose transcript had more Fs than probably any other grade. Right? And that project is now funded by General Motors. I'd been to University of Southern California a couple of years ago, and they said that primarily it is because of this work that this project has been funded by General Motors. And, just another example is Huno. Huno is a student at Rutgers-Camden, currently a student at Rutgers-Camden. 1700 SAT score, didn't get into many schools, came to Rutgers-Camden. Because we are close to Penn and Princeton, some of my students go to these schools and audit classes. Huno goes to UPenn, has taken several graduate level classes and so on at UPenn without getting any credit. On top of that, they request the professors if it's okay for them to take the exams. The students at these schools, these top schools, don't want to take the exam, but my students from Camden go there and say, I would love to take your exam if you allow me to. So, this is the email that I get from one of the faculty. He comes regularly, pays attention, and aids the exam. I hope he's finding the class interesting and not too easy. Right? And he already is a junior. He already has 2 publications to his name. So, I can go on and on about many of the students. But anyway, so approximately 50%. So this is the data from the paper by Hambrush, Hadas, and so on. Approximately 50% of the domestic PhD students come from the top 54 institutions of baccalaureate origin, and other 50% come from from the rest, majority of the institutes, right? So Rutgers-Camden clearly belongs to the other majority, in fact, maybe towards the lower half. And, we have had this success in the last 5 years. From 2009 to 2014, we have had, one go to Brown, Cornell, CMU, Dartmouth, Princeton, Rutgers, New Brunswick, Maryland, Penn, and University of Southern California and Virginia Tech. 2 have won the NSF Graduate Fellowship, and 2 have received honorable mentions at the CRA Undergraduate Research Award competition. And this work that we have done at Camden also got me thinking about working with high school students. So once I was talking to my colleagues, and we were sort of criticizing the high school education in this country. And then I realized that, look, I have never stepped into any high school here. So, I should know a little bit about it before I talk about it. So I'd sent an email to few high schools in the vicinity saying that, can I come and give a talk? And I didn't receive a response from any of the high schools. And then after a few months, I was a bit upset. That thought came to my mind that how come they have not replied? So I called up a principal of a local school, Cherry Hill East. And the principal said, look, I'm very busy, but I'll put you in touch with the math teacher, Linda Heath. He puts me in touch with Linda Heath. Linda Heath said, let me ask my colleagues who can give you time in their class. After a week, she got back to my complete surprise. She says, none of my colleagues want to give time in their class, but they want to teach. Honestly, if this were the case, this would be great, right? If everyone wants to teach so dedicatedly. But she said that, look, I'll give you 30 minutes of my class time. I go to her class and I talk about, what computer scientists do, what I do. And I don't know what transpired at the end. I just said, next Saturday at 10 o'clock, I'll be in my office. If anyone wants to learn computer science, just feel free to come over. 3 students came over on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and that's when I started working with them. They first thought there may be a catch. This is what they told me later on. At the end, we worked for 2 hours. They went home. They told other students. 3 became 6, 6 became 12. 12 became finally 15. I remember repeating the lecture about 4, 5, 6 times. And finally, I worked with 15 students for an entire year in 2010, starting from September. In January, I must have mentioned, so my classes ran from 10 to 12:30. This is when Sean reaches home, and around 1:12, he emails me saying, Rajiv, you mentioned today if you were interested, we could possibly do some work with you over the summer. He's talking now about summer 2010. I just talked to Andrew about it, and we both are very interested. So I must have just mentioned in passing that, look, you guys should make good use of your summer. If you want to work, we can do some work together. Now, this is the email that got me thinking, maybe I should work with these students over the summer. So during that summer for 9 weeks, I told them I will work with you only if you are willing to put in 8 hours every day doing math and so on, right? So they came and we studied. During the year, I had worked on discrete math with them. During the summer, out of those 15, 12 students chose to come, and we worked on algorithm design from the standard book, Kleinberg-Tardosh. So that summer went quite well. One thing led to another, and then we moved the program to Princeton. Princeton was interested in hosting the program, and it worked out well with me. So now we run this summer program at Princeton. It's called Program in Algorithmic and Combinatorial Thinking. It started with a small group of students in 2010. And in just this past summer, 2016, we had 180 applications from all over the country and from different parts of the world. We had 75 participants, and out of that, 45 new participants were female students. So during this program, what we do now, the program has been going on for 6 years. During the summer, every new student learns discrete math. And then during the year, we work very intensively. We finish generally what we teach in a course. I teach this course even at UPenn. What I teach at UPenn, I finish that in about 6 to 7 weeks. So it's a pretty intense course. Then the students come during the year, every other Saturday, and we study algorithms. So at the end of 1 year, they would have finished discrete math and algorithms. A subset of those students come the following year to participate in the advanced group of the summer program, where they learn graduate level topics in approximation and randomized algorithms. So by the end of 15 months, a 10th grader or 11th grader would have gotten an exposure to, say, theoretical computer science, right? And pretty much at the research level topics. Students start reading research papers towards the end of the 15 months and so on. And some students come for 4 years in a row because the advanced group theme changes every year. Some year it's randomized algorithms, some year it's machine learning, some year it's randomized algorithms and so on. So, this is the kind of email that I got. So Luigi was a student in the summer program. He was a high school student. Now he's a freshman in college, and he went and worked with worked with the professor at a top university, and this is the email I get from the professor. Today was Luigi's last day working with me, and I want to thank you most sincerely for recommending him and supporting him. So I was late in recommending him, and there was no funding, so I had said that I have enough funds, so that's not a problem, I'll support him. He's amazing, he's incredibly smart, well prepared, and tenacious about working on hard problems without giving up. He's also very nice, as you'll hear when he visits you next week. He contributed significantly to a number of very nice results and has some very impressive results that he came up with entirely independently. I'm happy to take any student that you recommend in the future. So this is what the program is about. The summer program will prepare the students so well that when they enter as freshmen at any college, they can essentially do what a PhD student does. And even better because they have no fear. If you give them an open problem to work on, if they can't do this, hey, what do you expect? I'm an undergrad. If they're able to solve this, hey, I'm an undergrad, I solved this problem. So it's a win-win situation, right? So, to me, I think, so this summer program prepares so many students from the summer program basically start the research from as soon as they become freshmen in college. I have also had the opportunity to work with students in Mumbai University. So I was a Fulbright fellow in Mumbai in 2011. And since then, I've been going twice a year to Mumbai, and I specifically work at colleges which are not elite. So I don't work at the IITs. Students from IITs are welcome to come and work, but I don't necessarily go there to IIT to teach because those students have all they need to basically succeed. But it's the students outside of IITs where there is so much talent which is not tapped, right? So I worked with them. So when I'd gone in 2011, that was probably one of the best experiences of my career. I would teach for hours at a stretch in a class that can hold 75 students. About 100 or more students would be sitting I cannot turn on the fan in the seat because if I turn on the fan, I cannot hear the questions from the students and they cannot hear me. So fans would be off still, people would not move. That was the kind of dedication the students had because they would not get such an opportunity. And anyway, that was very satisfying experience. So since then, I've been continuing to go to these places where there is no history of students entering the PhD program. And in the last few years, in the last 5 years, we have had tremendous success there. Manish Purohit was among the first students who went to Maryland in 2011. He was going to be turned down, and I had written an email to my advisor Samir there. I said, look, this guy is very good. He said, oh, we are about to turn him down. I said, no, he's very good. You should give him a chance. Finally, they take him, and he just finished his PhD with Samir, and he did exceptionally well. 15 more students are now in the PhD program. I get emails such as this. We have been very happy to have Amay here. He's a very, very valuable addition to this department. And also one of the students, for example, recently got this at the end of the first year evaluation when they evaluate graduate students. This is again, Sharad got this feedback. I think Sharad has been making exceptional progress this year. He's gotten more than up to speed in several different areas that require different background. I have absolutely no concerns about his ability to make good progress. And on the contrary, I think he's well positioned to do some really amazing work. I think once the current project is complete, the big question is where to go from here. Anyway, overall, though as a first year student, he's been doing an amazing job. So these are the students who didn't have the opportunity are now doing exceptionally well. People have won Google Fellowship, all the prestigious fellowships and so on. So, finally, I always get asked, what are the takeaways? So, I've tried to identify some. And, one thing I can say from the experience of Rutgers-Camden students is the resource augmentation, right? The students, they are very bright, but they have no idea how to get out of the situation they are in. Look, our society, if you think about it, right? I mean, we are very good at branding people, right? And this includes myself also, right? If you subconsciously, if you think, at the age of 17, if somebody doesn't have a good transcript, we say, oh, he's no good. Somebody goes to MIT at 70, oh, he's very good, he's at MIT. But why does it have to be that everyone has to blossom at the age of 17? Why can't somebody blossom at the age of 21 and we still give them an opportunity to basically get into, let's say, pursue their dreams? And it's not easy for the students. And these are the kind of students that we have at Rutgers-Camden, right? They realize, so, for example, I have student Mark Lippincott, who's now 30, right? He has not finished a bachelor's degree, but now he wants to finish. And he is, in fact, more serious now because he realizes his mistakes. But who's going to give him a chance, right? And these are all the students. James Davis was a dropout after high school. Who would have given him a chance? That's why he was thinking of going back to ShopRite, right, at the end of his senior year. So research augmentation, just faculty, working with students very closely. My students were not alone. My students had me and them working towards one person's goal. When two people work towards one person's goal, obviously good things are bound to happen, right? So I think that was one thing. Funding from NSF, right? Relieving them of their worries about making ends meet. That was very useful. Another advantage of funding is, if I'm paying a student, that makes them accountable, right? I tell, look, I paid you this, you tell me what have you done. To give you an idea, we use various strategies. For example, if Robert McDavid had this problem, Robert McDavid was brilliant, but he said, Rajiv, I just have never worked more than 30 minutes maybe in the entire semester. You want me to work 8 hours a day? How is that going to happen? To make that happen, what we used to do was, I said, every night before you go to bed, I want you to write a status report. What you did that day, what you're going to do the next day. I will not answer that email, but you will have it in writing what you have promised me to do and what you have done that day. And he told me that worked magic for him because 5 o'clock in the evening he would start trembling because he has not done anything all day. Now he has to keep up with his promise that he made the previous evening. Right? And that worked magic slowly from 3 hours, 4 hours, all the way it went to 6, 7 hours. And now, of course, at some point after 6, 8 months, he said, Rajiv, I'm doing fine. I don't need to send you any more status reports. And he's doing fine. He's the student who's now at Princeton. And then depth first approach. And I think this is instrumental, right? And this again, students at Camden at 2 years. Essentially 1 year or so, because first semester it just takes the time to know them. Then at most a year, because then if they get any job, they are going to leave. So in 1 year, how do I convince them that, look, you are good enough to pursue academics or further academics? And how do I make them good enough so that the world pays attention to them, right? So it's the depth first approach that is going deep in one area. If I wait for them to get freshman background, then sophomore, then junior, then, they are gone by the time they come to the interesting stuff. So let them be good in one area, and because I'm a theoretician, I basically teach them theoretical computer science. You want to do operating systems? You can do that later. You first learn theory with me. You want to do human-computer interaction? That can wait. You first do theory with me. The good thing for that is that it gave them the confidence. Doing theory well is a foundation for what I understand now is for many areas. It just gives them the confidence. When they go to grad school, they are not worried about any theory being thrown at them, which I find many graduate students, even at top school, being worried about those courses. Right? So I think all my students, and people ask me, said, oh, do all your students go and do PhD in theory? No, not at all. Far from that, actually. My students have gone on to do natural language processing, all kinds of areas, human-computer interaction, databases, and Robert McDavid is in networking, and so on. Right? So the depth for approach, and that has worked magic even with the high school students. The high school program is a no technology program. So I was first told that by many people, look, if you don't teach them programming, you're not going to have American high school students spend 8 hours a day doing math. So I said, maybe that's true. So I had Python programming as part of the high school program for first 2 years. At the end of the first year, we had a feedback. Students said, remove the programming part from the course. I said, maybe these are outliers. Second year, again we had programming. Second year, the same feedback. Get rid of programming. We don't like programming. We have got rid of programming completely. Now the program is totally theoretical computer science. And it's working great. We have had tremendous success with female students and all. Right? So I think the depth for the, so imagine a high school student, by the time he finishes 12th grade, already knows advanced topics like approximation algorithm, randomized algorithms, and so on. Right? They can continue taking other courses later on. They can then decide that, okay, you know what, I learned theory, but that's not for me. I want to do programming languages, or I want to do human-computer interaction, anything that they want to do. And it doesn't have to be theory. If there is some other person, if their interest is something else, they can go deep in that area. Role models, rather than listening to me all the time, it helps previous students who have been successful come and talk to the new students. And that has worked magic. Brad's success has helped in inspiring other students also to pursue academics at Rutgers-Camden. Right? Strong work ethic. Increasing the workload in the Math Foundations class was very useful because it was sink or swim for them. They had to work hard. They realized there was no room. Just imagine an assignment going out every class due in the next class. There is no breathing room. I first thought when I did that there'll be riots. But fortunately, it just went on. Nobody complained. That is maybe a good thing about students at Camden. They never complained about the poor quality of courses, and they never complained about the difficult courses. And that just stayed on. And that has become like a very norm now. That is, when I teach, it'll be one assignment per class due in the next class. And finally, giving people a chance. And this is something that I have learned. I may not have been this way had I not been at Camden. We are very quick at branding people and then not giving them a chance. But all many times people need is one chance to get out of the situation that they are in. Right? And it's not always easy. For me, it all worked out because I was at Camden. I was dealt with these cards and I had to make the best of that. Right? So finally, this is a recent quote by Lance Fortnow, who's the department chair of computer science at Georgia Tech. After the elections, he wrote, the blog title was Our Role and Our Responsibility. And in that he wrote, he said, we love working at universities where we can educate the very top students. But many don't get the opportunity to go to college at all. They are honest people willing to work hard and not seeing their lives improving. And we just call them uneducated. This really, rung a chord with me in the sense, this is the kind of students we have at Camden. They are honest, they are hardworking, but they don't know how they can have the same opportunities as the other students at other elite schools. And I'm very fortunate that I'm at that place where I can work with the students. Right? And then Julian Sitt, in the high school program, when they submit an application, they have to write an essay, and Julian Sitt wrote this sentence in his essay, which, is basically the premise on which my work is based. Ordinary people, when given a chance, can perform extraordinary tasks. And finally, there are a lot of people I have to thank for the work that we have done. First, the Rutgers-Camden students. Had I not been at Rutgers-Camden, I don't see myself thinking about these issues. I was there in the thick of things. I wanted to make the best of whatever I was given, and it made me think of all these things, which I would not have done otherwise. My advisor, Samir Khullar at Maryland, initially, whenever I wanted my students to present their work or something, I would always call him first and say, hey, Samir, can they come to Maryland and give a talk? And he would always very happily arrange for it. Daria Torres, who was an evaluator for the summer program and the students at Rutgers-Camden, would talk to the students and give me feedback on how I can change some things to be more effective. She's the one who told me, Rajiv, get rid of programming. right after the first 2 years that she did the evaluations. National Science Foundation, I cannot thank them enough for the funding that they've given me. That is what has helped me in telling these Rutgers-Camden students to basically quit their jobs and pursue their interests. Princeton University for hosting the summer program. It would be very hard for me to continue the summer program at Camden because of Camden, right? It would be very hard. Parents would not feel comfortable maybe to send their kids for the summer program and so on. Fulbright for giving me the opportunity to go to India, which has been going very well. Now I go twice a year and work with students there. And I've really found some amazing, amazing students and who are doing quite well now. And finally, my family. For, in the initial years that I was at Camden, when I made the course very hard, Math Foundations course very hard, or I would thrust a lot of work on my students, I can do that only if I am willing to be there with them and hold them by the finger when they needed help. I cannot give them hard work and say, bye-bye, I'm gone. So the deal was, I give you hard work. If you need help, you have my phone number. Call me anytime. I don't do that anymore now. I don't need to. But there was a time when I had to change the culture. At that time, I had to give them anything that they need. Just don't give me excuse. What do you need? You tell me what you need, I will give it to you. So my students would come and tell me sometimes, Rajiv, there is no place for me to study at home. I would get a key from the department saying, I need this office or I need this space. I would give that key to my students. I say, you go and use that space. What do you need? And we'll make that happen. Just make sure you get the work done. So, and during that time, I used to work late nights at Camden and so on. And, my family had been incredibly supportive. And finally, thank you all very much for coming. Yeah.
Thank you for that excellent talk. I'm wondering, has the faculty at Rutgers-Camden in your department now changed their mindset about your students based on the wonderful successes you've been having?
Quite a bit, actually. I won't say all. We are a very small group of 8 faculty. But I would say that at least half the faculty now work very closely with students. Yeah. So I think that is what they needed to see, that, look, these things can happen. It was not like but they had, initially when I came, I was the junior most. And they were like, we've been here. Things have not worked out. But after they have seen, definitely the culture has changed. Yeah.
How well does this scale? It sounds like these are small handful of students. You're able to get to know them one-on-one, stuff like that. Are your classes 20, 30, 50?
So at Camden, my classes are no more than 30 students. But when I teach at Penn, my classes are 200 students. So I've taught from classes as small as 5 students to as big as 200 students.
And how does this sort of approach scale if you've got 200 students, you're not going to be able to do the one-on-one with every one of them?
It is not possible to do one-on-one with everyone. So, of course, at Camden, had it been 200 students, I would not have been able to work one-on-one with that many students, for sure. But if I had 200 students, then the chances are a good number of them being interested in pursuing academics will also go higher, just because of the numbers being more. Right? So, but at Camden, because we have a small group, we don't have that many big numbers of students who want to do something. So, but if I had more, then probably I would have got more number of students who would be interested in graduate studies. But you're right that if I had too many students, I alone could not be able to work with all of them. And high school program, we have 75 students. Yeah.
So when you made these changes at Camden to the curriculum, what did you see in the changes in terms of dropout rate or the number of students who enrolled in the course?
Excellent question. So initially, when I was going to teach 3 semesters in a row, dropout rate was not much because it didn't make sense to drop out. But now when I don't do that, the dropout rate is very high. So for example, right now I'm teaching a course, 50% of the students have dropped out. Because they find the person, and this happened after the schedule for next semester came out. And as soon as the schedule for next semester came out, they saw the person teaching the course, they said, oh, much easier. Students know a lot more about, what happens in different faculty's classes, so 50% of them dropped out. So what they do now is, they attend my classes all through the semester. They say, we can learn from you, but we can get better grades from the other professors. So it does happen, yeah, people do drop out my classes. But I'm not too concerned about that, and I again look at the positive side of everything. I'm very happy that we have faculty who pass students. But then I can go do what I want. You are there to pass everyone. I'm not worried about that. But I don't want the people who want to work to basically suffer because of the students who may not want to work and just get a grade.
Where do you think that kind of want to work comes from? Do you think that the students are coming in with it, or there are things that you're doing or something about the community and the class that brings that out in people?
So I think a mix. So I mean, it's the students come, when they come to Camden, they have come to just graduate because, as Robert says, everyone goes to college, that's why I'm going to college, right? I mean, I don't know anything better, so I'm going there. Many times all they need is an inspiration, somebody to tell them, hey, you can actually do this. Quite shockingly, how I came to know about Robert was in my Math Foundations class, in which he got an A. The same class he had failed in the previous semester. That's why he was in my class. And I asked him, how can you fail that class? My class is much harder than that. He said, Rajiv, I was so bored in the class, so I would not go to the class, and I would challenge myself that because the class is going so slow, if I skip 2 classes and I go to the 3rd class, I challenge myself I should be able to pick it up. Okay, so he did that, but in the process, he actually missed attending exams. And that's why he failed. He failed not because he was not good, but to my luck that because he failed, he came to my class. And that's why so many times it's just the inspiration that they need.
So you described how the simplified version of making the classes more challenging and making yourself accessible was the key thing, but how much went into making sure that the proofs were crystal clear in the lectures and deciding exactly what the curriculum should be, and how crucial do you think that was, and how much effort did that take?
So there is no question that I worked incredibly hard. I made my own set of lecture notes and so on, and I would, so to just give you an idea about, let's say, teaching at UPenn to this more elite, students at more elite schools. Even there, my course is significantly harder than the course that was taught before I joined UPenn, right? This is what I hear, that is the course is much harder. And students actually appreciate that, right? I mean, the students basically are dumped into a lot of work, but they have a lot of help also. I have a team of 24 teaching assistants who are there. There are office hours every day. Right? So if something, let's say, even if it is not crystal clear, they have the opportunity to come and get help. And this is also part of learning. See, many times students say, many times people say, I want to make this better so that it's accessible to the students. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm giving you help. Why can't you walk out of your dorm and come and get help from us? We are willing to help, but you have to take the initiative. It's like taking the initiative. So, we try to make things as clear as possible, but students are also tired. Sometimes they may even sleep in the class. But it's okay, but they should have that. They should learn to have that. They should be inspired enough to come and get help when they want. And that is always available. That I make sure is always available, either through me or my teaching assistants. So that channel I always believe in keeping open. And one thing I want to talk about scale, because I think this is a very good point, right? I mean, this is, if you think of it in the big scheme of things, it's just impacting a small group of students, right? What, 20, 30 at most, or 50 maybe? But what I want to say is that, there is no magic here. I don't think there is anything great secret here. What is there is just dedication. I'm a very passionate guy. Whatever I pick, I do it, with full, passion. And, for example, I many times tell my colleagues, you can work with students, whichever students you don't want to work with, you can give it to me, I'll work with them. I'll make the best out of whatever is given to me, right? What I want to say is that this thing can be done at other schools also. The thing is the department should invest in such people, right? I mean, I see ads, we need a full-time assistant professor position interested in AI research. I never see an ad saying we need a professor who is interested in supporting undergraduate education. Why? Because that is considered that, hey, you are supposed to do that. But then once a faculty joins at many schools, I'm not saying this about every school, they're saying, oh, you just focus on your research because tenure is what is going to depend on your research and how much money you get. Well, if that is the case, then you invest in somebody who's going to support undergraduate research. For example, to just give you an idea, why are these seats empty? If I am in this department, I can tell you not a single seat in Colloquium will be empty. I guarantee you that. I will go to every undergrad who's sitting there sipping coffee and I say, sit here. That's not that hard. It just takes someone to say, I will do that. Right? People say classes are empty in these top schools. Come and sit in my class. I'll see how many kids will not be in my class. Right? It just takes some effort. It just takes what is important for you. And I don't have to be XYZ, somebody doesn't have to be Rajiv. But we need all kind of people. And I just think that if every department invests in this, scaling will happen automatically. Right? So that's my only message. For example, the high school program that we run, now it has grown so big, I feel bad. I have 180 applications without advertising. I feel bad that I have to turn away more than 100 applications. If somebody wants to start such a program at somewhere else, I'm happy to work with that people. We may even be able to get funding from NSF if needed. But all we need is people, and I think these things can be scaled.
Okay, thank you very much.